We'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Announcements, awards, and special recognition. Staff, Jasmine? Nope. Clint, did you have something you wanted to mention?
Yes, I do. Is this on? Okay. Just so we at least recognize all of those living or did live in Peachtree City and now they're in the military. This month is Military Appreciation Month. Peachtree City wants to salute those who are serving in the military, and we wish them come home safely. Thank you, Mayor.
Amen.
All right. Presentation, Peachtree City Art Passport. Mr. Thornton is not here tonight, so we'll skip that one. Public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight?
Yes, we have 2 individuals sign up to speak. First person sign up to speak is Rick Owen.
You can take either microphone, wherever you're comfortable.
Hello, my name is Rick Owen. I live at 300 Broken Bit Way, right by Huddleston Pond. On the 18th of last month, 2 dogs came into my yard. One was a pit bull, the other one I don't know. They attacked my dog, who has been out there, laid out in that same spot for the last 10 years. They ripped her head open, had her throat halfway out, and tore her ear off. I had to take her to the vet. The vet sent me to a couple different, to the Fayetteville Medical vet sent me to Sandy Springs. These dogs were, as my daughter came out, she heard all the commotion. These dogs were attacking my dog and just trying to kill her. The dogs finally got off of her when the owner of the yard of them came up and called them off. These dogs have been out numerous times. She has been cited 3 times in the last 5 years from what they told me yesterday at the Fayette court. She knew these dogs was dangerous. She begged me not to call the police. She begged me not to call animal control. But since all this happened, I have found numerous people who they've been attacked by these dogs. They bit a person at Huddleston Pond. Animal control told me it was just a scratch. The lady has problems with her hand now. They bit an 85-year-old lady in the neighborhood. They chased a young lady in our neighborhood. They're out of control. Animal control is not going to do nothing. I talked to Eric. I can't think of his last name.
Maxwell.
County Commissioner.
Maxwell.
Nothing's going on. They deemed the dogs dangerous. That's as far as they've got. We just got a problem in the neighborhood. Neighbors are concerned. Neighbors are keeping different type of weapons, buy them or own them. They're scared of these dogs. Animal control says there's not much they can do, but these dogs are just terrorizing the neighborhood, and people are very concerned. I don't know if it's going to take, I hate to say this, somebody getting killed or something, but these dogs need to be put down. Or, like I say, this is the according to the courts, I say this is the 3rd citation in 5 years. 2 in the last 2 months with these dogs getting out. So I don't know where else to go. I just like to put it on record. I've got a letter I'd like to give you guys that's got information of the 2 people that gave statements. And other than that, I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Owen. Mr. Owen.
We'll give them to the city clerk.
The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Suzanne Brown.
Suzanne Brown. I live in Crescent Oak. We do not need to annex our way to Fayetteville. Let's let Fayetteville and Fayette County win the award for uncontrolled growth. Peachtree City is not obligated to enhance any investor or developer's value of any property that they purchased by annexing it into the city. A property owner has the right to use their land as it is zoned when they purchase it. When a property is comprised of acres of wetlands and in a conservation district, even more care must be taken. The wetland areas should not be considered any part of the buildable lots because the wetlands are not buildable. A property owner can request annexation just as they can request rezoning. Peachtree City is not obligated to approve either annexation or rezoning. No property owner should ever purchase property outside Peachtree City with an expectation that it will ever be annexed into Peachtree City, especially if it is not in compliance with the land plan. A development on the edge of the city is supposed to be the least dense residential housing. 1.8 acre lots doesn't meet that requirement. The outer edge should be zoned as estate residential, which is the least dense residential zoning. Administrations followed the provision of the lowest possible density on the city limits until Vanessa Fleisch pushed through the Governor's Square annexation and rezoning. That stands as the worst residential zoning debacle in city history. We don't want this council to even come close to repeating that. Developments zoned as residential estates have fewer houses. The smaller number of houses generates less property tax and makes it hard to justify extending city services beyond the current city limits. Annexation carries obligations to provide services such as sewer, storm drainage, police, fire, EMS, multi-use path, street paving, and maintenance of green space. By the way, is there any green space there? A bad decision to move further into outlying areas puts a burden on city services. That added burden will force current city residents who have been paying taxes for years to subsidize services to these outlying areas. Case in point, the new fire station to be built on the south side of the city. Taxpayers are having to spend millions to build and equip a new station and provide services to the south side of Peachtree City. Let's not forget, Peachtree City only has money if they take it from us, the citizens. If you annex or rezone one property, others will follow. If you approve this, what will come next? We, the citizens, need you, our elected officials, to follow the ordinances and follow the land plan. We're counting on you. Thank you.
There are no additional speakers.
Agenda changes. Do we have any agenda changes?
Yes, I would like to pull consent agenda item A for a short discussion, please.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll pull it out. Thank you. Minutes. A, May 2nd, 2023 workshop minutes. B, May 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. C, May 4th, 2023 executive session minutes.
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the May 2nd, 2023 workshop minutes, the May 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, and the May 4th, 2023 executive session minutes.
Madam Mayor, I need to recluse myself for May 4th. I was not in attendance at the council meeting
All
or
right.
at the executive session.
Thank you. We'll just take May 2nd, 2023 workshop minutes. I have a motion to approve. Can I get a second for the May?
You need to withdraw your motion, Mike, because you made a motion to approve all three.
I withdraw the motion.
All right. Can I get a motion for the May 2nd?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the May 2nd, 2023 workshop minutes.
I'll
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Can I get another motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the May 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes and the May 4th, 2023 executive session minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda. B, consider title grade change for CVB employee sales manager. C, consider title grade change for CVB employee visitors center manager. D, fiscal year 24 budget amendment and purchase of council chambers courtroom audiovisual equipment. Can I get a motion on B, C, and D?
I make a motion that we accept consent agenda items B, C, and D as stated.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this time, Mr. King, you want to?
Yes, ma'am.
Discuss, yeah.
On Tuesday, we were discussing the agenda, and of course, the item A was presented, naming facilities, parks, and other areas came up, and it did occur to me at that time that if we approve this, as stated, we will be asking ourselves, how many of these are we gonna be looking at per year, and, you know, we don't know, we don't have a limit on it. And I know from previous experience that the more you repeat a memorial or an appreciation recognition such as this, it actually cheapens that particular recognition. And for that reason, I ask for only the stipulation that it be placed into the ordinance itself for a 1 per annum. And I just put it to council to decide if that's a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, so we talked about this one. To me, one's not enough, but five's too many. So like you said, it dilutes it. I don't know what that magic number is. We certainly want to recognize citizens that
Sure
have
we do.
given it their all, but at the same time, we could end up with, you know, right, the way this is, we could have 20,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know, thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are quite simple. It does cheapen it when you start keeping, you know, a record of 5, 10, 15 per year. I think it cheapens it up. I like the idea of just one because now it becomes a special that you only get once a year to do this. Now, if something comes up and maybe somebody passes away, you know, God forbid, something happens to Joel Cowan, we may want to do something that's a special change to this. But I think in the ordinance, or in the policies and procedures, I think one is what it should be on an annual basis.
I think the only problem with that is this is part of the car, or whatever we're gonna be calling it. I don't think you can continue to change it whenever you have a whim. But I do agree that, you know, we wanna make them special, but if you don't wanna do it too many times, then make it once every 6 months or once every quarter, but no more than that. I mean, reduce it, but don't reduce it too much.
Then, another question I have, who makes a nomination? Let's just say, citizen John makes a nomination, and we go, yeah, okay, we're not doing it, and okay, and then somebody else makes a nomination, and then is there,
Well,
Council has control. I mean, council has full control. Even if we didn't make any changes, we have the opportunity to limit that number.
number of nominations?
Of course, the acceptance of the nominations, sure. Mhm.
would it
Okay.
make
It's
any
in the-
difference if we change the word nomination to approval?
I guess I have to read what it says.
It's two different things. We would have to go back and look.
It does
Well,
say
let's-
approval, it says unanimous vote of approval,
yeah.
Yes.
okay?
Policy states that if a request comes in, goes to the city clerk, notifies the city manager, and then it's put on the next agenda. Period.
For council to approve.
Yeah, and that requires unanimous council approval.
It's-
And then, so, I guess that doesn't limit the number that we could
Yeah, there's
possibly
no-
look at.
There's no limit.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Well, can we amend this thing tonight and say 1 per annum? Or is it gonna be against what you're saying, that this should be, something-
You've got a car.
yeah,
And one of the reasons it's come up is because in the past it had been violated a number of times. Or it would,
Obviously, we need to take another look, and I would suggest that we have Justin or Bob, you know, take into account what you're suggesting so that we can look at this another night,
Fine.
another
fair
night.
enough.
I'm trying to
fair enough.
remember, when's the last time we named something?
It was
I
Dan
know you
Lackley
just
Boulevard.
referenced that we had violated
At
it.
Dan Lackey Boulevard or whatever between
That
McDonald's
was-
and Peachtree, and
That was before the year 2000, if I'm
No,
not.
that was sometime 10, 15 years ago.
Yes, yes. I remember
it was
him.
before 2000, because I got here in 2000.
No, I think it was after 2000.
Yes.
Because I remember I was city attorney when that
A long
happened.
time ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to remember.
But that was
So-
probably the last thing we did.
So they're not coming fast and
Fast and
furious. But if you
But-
want to take another look, you know,
Yeah.
then yeah.
My
because
only-
So we make
we
a
need-
motion to table it, and we need to make them,
You want to do that?
Well, let's make sure we set a time to bring it back too. Let's just not table it.
Yeah, you would need to table it, but my only question from a staff perspective as well is if you limit the number, especially if it's one, you gotta really define what the process is to get that one, because if you just say one, then it's like, okay, January 1st, first person to get it in, first person that gets a nomination, that's the one you're gonna consider, and none of the other ones submitted throughout the rest of the year.
Okay.
Well, that's why I used the word approval.
this is something we need to think a little more on.
Even if you get, on January 1st, you get somebody to put it in, we don't have to make a decision at that point. We can say we can postpone the decision because there may be others coming in, and we'll postpone it for 6 months and see what happens.
And it doesn't necessarily mean calendar year, first of the year.
Yeah.
It could be that we pass one in a
Yep.
month or two, and then we decide we're gonna give it a rest, look at another one. We actually have 4 in the pipeline. After 15 years, maybe that's not a surprise, nor is it excessive.
So, yeah, you just need to talk about how you kinda want it to flow.
All right, we'll do that. We'll take it out
Yeah.
of tonight. You wanna make a motion, Mike?
Yeah. Mayor, I move that we table consent agenda item A, policy 806, the naming of facilities, parks, and other areas until June 1st.
Until
It's not
may-
enough time,
Okay, tell me when.
Until maybe
not the
that
July.
the city
Until the first
manager
meeting in
comes back
July.
with some answers. Maybe give them whatever time it takes.
Indefinitely, just table it.
Then, Mayor, I'll withdraw the motion, and then I would move that we table policy 806, naming of facilities, parks, and other areas until such time as staff is prepared.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Old agenda items, we have none. New agenda items, 52306, first reading of filming ordinance. Kathy Wilder.
All right, good evening. The film permit ordinance was presented at the last council workshop in detail, so tonight I'm just going to be giving a brief overview of what's in this ordinance. So the purpose of this ordinance is to provide guidelines, procedures, and fees for issuing film permits. And we want to encourage film production while protecting the city's and residents' best interests. Some of the proposed regulations in this ordinance include the process of how permits are submitted and approved or denied. So we're moving to have a central point of contact for all film permitting within the Recreation Department. Currently, there is no single point of contact for film permits. We're going to have an application fee, and that's going to be paid first, and that must be done at least 10 business days in advance. And the application and any communications are going to be made to the various departments, and we will have a meeting in which the different departments that are impacted by the film permit are brought together, such as fire, police, and recreation, to discuss the needs of that filming project. Then we will voice the approval or denial of the permit. So some of the other regulations include a permit is required if it is impacting public space. Written permission is required from property owners, and notifications are required to be given to residents and businesses of the filming. Police department will be required for any road, path, or sidewalk closures involved with the filming project. There will also be violations included, so there would be a $1,000 fine per day if the film activity was not permitted. And when they do go to apply for a permit, if they wish to continue filming, the cost of the permit would be doubled. And there would be a $1,000 fine for any violations of the permit. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the fees included. So we have a $200 application fee. And if it's a high impact film, they would pay a $350 application fee. And high impact would include anything with closure or restricted access of city property, any crew larger than 50, anything that alters property, vegetation, anything with special effects or requires city resources, setting up of tents, temporary structures, or stage equipment. A rush fee would be applied if they're asking to film with less than 10 days notice, and if there's any changes made within 72 hours of filming, there would be a $200 permit change fee. Some other fees include a site visit fee, city personnel if somebody is required to be on site while they're filming, and then the police officer and EMS fees that they currently already charge. We'd also have a deposit of $1,000 that can be refunded after the project's completed. We currently have a recreation facility fee schedule in place, and so those fees would be used if they are filming and just not closing the park to the public. We have athletic fields rates, and then if they're filming in a parking lot, it would be $250 a day if it's still open, but if they're closing down the parking lot, it would be $1,000 a day if there was no access. And then some proposed fees for complete closures of facilities can be seen here. So anything that we consider low impact, small parks, low use facilities would start at $4,000 a day to close. And then anything that's more high impact, like Drake Field, Picnic Park, Line Creek, and those listed on there would be $20,000 a day and up. And these are at the discretion of the city manager if we would be able to close those facilities or not to the public. And that's it.
Thank you. Council, questions?
Have no
Concern?
questions.
We did talk before about we can go stop them, right? I mean, that's key.
Yes. If they don't have a permit or if they're
In
violating.
violation or whatever, I
Yes.
mean, $1,000
Yes.
a day to move
This
the
gives,
industry is
this
like,
actually gives
what
us,
do you do?
this gives us meat. So-
Okay,
I'd like to, may I?
Certainly.
I'd like to bring up a scenario for you, Kathy, and
Sure.
hopefully you've got a good answer for it.
Try.
2 years ago, across the street from where I live, they had a filming of the Showtime, I think it was Showtime, called Heels. And they filmed at night for 3 straight nights, where they set up all the equipment, as you just said. And obviously, the neighbors that were nearby, including us and others, were impacted by that. And they came and gave us a monetary settlement to say, hey, look, I'm sorry, we're gonna be some lights out here and stuff, but, can we give you some money to, let this go? Okay. The question I have is not so much myself and the other neighbors, but it impacted all of the transportation throughout the whole development because they were filming and they were blocking the road. How is that, is that in your setup of how you control that? Because not only were we impacted because we were right across the street from them, but even the people that lived down the road, they were impacted because they couldn't get through. They had to figure out a way, and living where I live in Kedron Hills, there's only one way in and one way out. So is that possibly set up somehow in your program?
Yes. So there is some specification on having a clear line of sight within the neighborhood, so not blocking any intersections, stop signs, things of that nature, and then having a clear path for emergency vehicles, police, fire, ambulances to come through. And all of this, when they apply for this, we bring them all together in meeting with all these different departments to address those things. And if we can allow that to take place in the first of all, and then to address those issues, because previously we had nothing in place. We would have not
know.
had that permitted. So this kind of checks all of that before it takes place, and maybe it gets approved, but it also could be denied.
Thank you very much. That was a good explanation.
Thank you.
Anything else? Questions?
I just thought it was well written. This is the second time we've seen it. Looks good. Thank you for the briefing.
Thank you.
Do we need a second reading?
Well, that, I was
There's-
gonna remind council that you don't, there's no requirement in our ordinances for you to have a second reading. So if you feel comfortable, you can pass it tonight, but we can have a second reading. It's up to council.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Let me get a motion.
Let's do it.
I make a motion that for new agenda item 05-2306, the first reading of the film ordinance, that be approved as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Nicely done, Kathy.
New agenda item B, 52307, fiscal year 2024 nonprofit funding request, Fayette County Council on Domestic Violence, DBA Promise Place. Jasmine.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is just a reminder that annually, Mayor and Council adopts a budget of $25,000 to allow funding for nonprofits. And I am going to lump the next two items together, which one is nonprofit funding for fiscal year 24 for Fayette County Domestic Violence, Council on Domestic Violence, excuse me, DBA Promise Place, as well as the Fayette Senior Services. Promise Place has requested funding for $10,000, and then Fayette Senior Services has requested funding in the amount of $15,000. So this is something that's done annually, and it's up to the mayor and council if you also choose to approve the funding and the recommendations provided.
Thank you. My perspective on this is that historically, over the many years, we have provided $10,000 and $15,000 to these two organizations on the premise that they provide a needed service for Peachtree City citizens that the city does not provide. I think these are worthy organizations and necessary services. My suggestion would be that we continue what we've been doing, $10,000 and $15,000.
I would agree.
Thank you.
I only have one comment, of course. My comment is, I think the limits are 7,500. And are there other worthy ones that could get a piece of this along the way? And I just don't know. I'm new here, so I don't know if there's others. Anyone have any suggestions? Otherwise, we'll let it go.
My suggestion would be that we continue the $10,000 and $15,000.
We can look into it
For the future,
yeah.
I may just do that to see if there's a third one that could possibly use some additional funding, because it's good to spread this kind of stuff around. I'm not saying that these are doing anything wrong. It's just I was hoping to spread it around a little bit more. But I'm okay.
I think we ought to go along with what we've been doing. And for your information, Clint, we have looked at one other one, and the council turned that down a couple of years ago.
Okay.
All right, do we need two
Thank you.
motions or one?
Two separate motions, please.
Can I get a
With
motion?
specific dollar amounts within the motions.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on nonprofit funding request for Fayette County Council on Domestic Violence?
Mayor, I'd move
So
that we
moved.
approve the new agenda item 52307, the FY24 nonprofit funding request for Fayette County Council on Domestic Violence, doing business as Promise Place, and that was for $10,000.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 52308, Fayette Senior Services. Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve new agenda item 52308, FY24 nonprofit funding request, Fayette Senior Citizens, in the amount of $15,000.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. D, 52309, resolution to pledge to practice and promote civility in the city of Peachtree City. Justin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be presenting this tonight in the absence of our fearless staff leader, Bob. He's under the weather tonight. Staff, this is a initiative that is statewide. It's proposed by the Georgia Municipal Association, which is kind of our statewide entity for your municipalities in Georgia, as far as all of us getting together collectively and pushing municipal information and all that kind of stuff throughout the state to each other. So I just want to get into a little history here. Peachtree City is a GMA, which is the Georgia Municipal Association, is a GMA certified city of ethics since January 2000. We're a certified city of ethics. So what does that mean? There we go. The 5 principles of a GMA certified city of ethics, 1 through 5 there, serve others, not ourselves, use resources with efficiency and economy, treat all people fairly, use the power of our position for the well-being of our constituents, and create an environment of honesty, openness, and integrity. These kind of pledges and these resolutions, like the resolution we have tonight, the resolution for the ethics, all that kind of stuff, they're not ordinances. They don't go into our ordinances. They're not policies. These are just pledges that you take as a council, and they kind of permeate through our staff of how we want to hold ourselves beyond what our ordinances and resolution, or beyond what our ordinances and policies say. So tying this idea of a city of civility back into, you were all familiar with this. We had a retreat back in, was it February?
March.
We had a retreat back in March with council and with some key staff, with the executive staff. We decided to come up with our vision of uncompromised excellence. We'll be rolling that out to staff later this fall in kind of a big rollout thing. We also came up with our core values as an organization that has the acronym of PASS, P-A-T-H-S-S, so PASS. How this kind of ties into the city of civility are really those first 3, professionalism, accountability, and teamwork. What I really highlighted out of this is professionalism to tie into civility has the words respect for others in it, accountability has the words personal responsibility, and then teamwork has the words communicate and collaborate, which can also be found in the civility pledge that we're looking at tonight. So what is civility? And this is from GMA, I believe. What I find here is, I'm not going to read through all this, but civility is more than just politeness. It's about disagreeing without being disrespectful. And the big thing here is staying present. Let's see, this is kind of, that pointer's not really working. Staying present even when those with whom we have deep-rooted and fierce disagreement. So we stay present even with people we have a fierce disagreement with, which in government we have to do sometimes. Why civility matters. Civil behavior and speech are critical for a healthy, functional, and respectful society. I found this interesting. A 2019 survey revealed that 93% of Americans believe that incivility is a problem. 68% identifying incivility as a major problem. And then cities need to plan to counteract the growing political polarization and challenges caused by incivility that we see in our society right now. So the 9 pillars of civility, this is also from GMA. I'll read through them pretty fast. I'm not going to read everything, but be considerate of others' opinions, manage your emotions. A silent voice is not always a weak voice. Be kind, actively listen, think about the impact, ask questions to learn. Remember the acronym Q-tip, quit taking it personal, and have empathy. And then finally, I'm going to end with this one, and you guys can discuss as needed. But the civility pledge, that basically is the pledge that GMA came up with to become a city of civility, is the way we govern ourselves is often as important as the positions we take. Our collective decisions will be better when differing views have had the opportunity to be fully vetted and considered. All people have the right to be treated with respect, courtesy, and openness. We value all input. We commit to conduct ourselves at all times with civility and courtesy to each other. And I'll end it there.
All right.
That's the presentation, and then any discussion council has.
Thank you. I think it's appropriate to hark back to the 2-day retreat that we had. We made some new efforts toward teamwork and respect and civility. I think we found a lot of common ground, and that was made all the more joyful because it was in conjunction with our staff heads. I was proud of the work that we did and got a lot done in only 2 days. I believe that civility is a framework for effective government, and I'm excited to pass this resolution. Any other comments?
For my opinion is, I think we all need to be civil with each other. I think we try to do that as much as we can. I know as new people on the council, we don't always get along, and I know that I try to work face to face with people. I don't like emails as much as even talking on the phone. I think you get more out of meeting with somebody face to face. So every time I've had an issue with anybody, I tried to get along by sitting down face to face and working out my differences. So I think it's a good thing to do. I know there's been emails that we've gotten, or at least I've gotten, that kind of make a joke out of this. I'm not making a joke out of it. I think it goes right along with what we had in our work session, and it goes along with the whole thing that we did during our workshop. So I think it's a good thing to do. And none of that, when you read something, you take a pledge, just like we did in the military. I believe in, if I take a pledge to do something, I'm going to do it. So I think it's a good thing for doing, and I'm for it.
Thank you. Clint, any comments?
Look, we all have had a bit of incivility in our life, wherever it may be. And sometimes you look back on that and you say, oh my goodness, have I created that incivility, or was I the receiver of that incivility? In either case, we need to take a pledge to be civil in all matters, to agree, sometimes to not agree, and that's okay. I like this. What I don't like about it is, to me, it sounds like, maybe it's because I'm old school, it sounds a little woke to me. And you all recognize what wokeness is. And it's got a little bit of that in there. But at the same time, I can be for this because I think the whole issue of civility is important for this council and for, quite frankly, everybody that's sitting here tonight, to be civil to each other. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. I'll take you back to 2013 when I first ran for council. If you remember reading The Citizen back then, there was almost a weekly letter to the editor of a council person challenging or lambasting another, or the mayor lambasting a council member, or back and forth. It was the very same thing in the dice. It was embarrassing, and I'm sure Ms. Lerner remembers those days well. I'm not going to say anyone in particular was at fault. They're not. It was just the way things were done. This civility thing, though, I have to echo what my colleague Clint has said about the wokeness. And I caution you in approving this because, number one, there are going to be times that when we get into specific issues that's going to touch some nerves or whatever, we're going to ask some very direct and pointed questions. Mm-hmm. And it may feel like when we do ask them, for the individual on the other end, to start getting emotional or start feeling hurt or whatever. And that's the wokeness that I think he's referring to. Yep. And we have to be extremely careful. And I don't want this thing to look like we're trying to approve something just because we can. You know, being nice to one another, all I have to do is look at my oath of office, and it tells me exactly what we're doing here. And so with that, with this thing getting approved, I just caution you on it.
Well said. Anything, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the way we should be doing things anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like but if I know our city manager brought this forward, and if he thinks it can improve the culture and continue to improve the culture of the city, I don't see any reason to vote against it.
Thank you. Can I get him?
Nor do I, because I asked him the other day, I said, are you kidding? You were going to bring this thing to council? But he did. And, like I said before, we're just not trying to get something accomplished. This thing has no teeth in it. And, for that, I would move that we approve the new agenda item 52309, the resolution to pledge and practice and promote civility in the city of Peachtree City.
I'll second.
I have a motion in 4 seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
New agenda item E, 52310, Step 1 annexation request for 400 Stagecoach Road, Robin Caillou. And if I may ask, could you start, Robin, by identifying what Step 1 annexation means?
Yes, thank you. While we get our PowerPoint presentation, that's actually the first slide in my presentation, is to go over the annexation process in Peachtree City. We actually have a two-step process. The reason we do this is because the state annexation process is a highly regulated, time-constrained, very specific legal process that we have to go through. It's also very expensive for an applicant to do, and it's very time-consuming for staff to review. And so before we even decide to get there, we added this two-step process so that you can answer the question from a very high up perspective. Does it generally meet our goals and policies as a city? And if so, then they can move forward in the process. If not, if the step one is denied, then the process ends and we don't move forward through that legal step. So as you can see on the slide, there's the steps, and I did want to note that at no point does accepting a step one annexation indicate approval of the final annexation. The property is located on the northeast side of the city. Here's 54 going up that way, and then it curves around towards Fayetteville. We've got Robinson Road coming in underneath that inset map. This location right here is the new middle school. This dashed red line is the current municipal boundaries. We've got Spear Road running along there. And the property that is requesting this is 52 acres highlighted in blue. It is currently zoned AR, which stands for agricultural, in the county, which has a 5-acre lot minimum. They are requesting to annex and zone. Those are concurrent actions through this process. And zone to ER, and which is a state residential, which is your 3-acre lot minimum, and LUR, limited use residential. And a limited use residential is a very site-specific land zoning. It is tied to the site plan that is approved, if it's approved, at the zoning process. So they are requesting a total of 23 lots, and I did want to note here that it is 2 separate subdivisions. One only has access from Stagecoach, and one only has access from Spear. Let me show you this plan that was submitted by the applicant. Just for reference, again, there's Robinson Road, Spear Road running that way, old Stagecoach, new middle school. So this portion right here is what they're asking to zone to, would be asking to zone to estate residential. And then this is a 21 lot subdivision that would be LUR, would only have access off of Spear. There is a major, significant creek called Camp Creek that runs through the property. Staff is by ordinance not permitted to give a recommendation. We are only allowed to look at our policies from the comprehensive plan. And so we have identified what those may be from the plan. I did also want to note that this graphic shows the 2014 growth boundary study areas. This was a planning process, which means that this is the final result, but there were many properties that were considered during that process. This property that we're now asking for the annexation one was considered during the process, but did not make it to the final result of that 2014 study. I've highlighted, or I've circled the general area where this property is located. The colored areas along that kind of blank white outline are the areas that were considered for annexation in that 2014 study. So the policies that may apply to this application is the step down in density as you move away from the village centers. We have a policy to encourage housing options that accommodate aging in place, working from home, multi-generational families while protecting the residential character of established neighborhoods. We have a policy of preserving lakes, wetlands, floodplains, major streams, and minor drainage systems in permanent open space. And to encourage alternative modes such as walking, bicycling, and low-speed carts by providing a comprehensive multi-use path system connecting all the villages and residential areas of the city. which means I did forget to mention that as I step back here, although the roads do not connect, so as you can see showing here, Stagecoach would then end in a cul-de-sac. They are proposing a multi-use path that connects the end of this cul-de-sac up to Stagecoach. Staff has done some research on what stage we are at the Stagecoach Road. That, as you are aware, the city contributed to the Board of Education for the construction of that road. They have constructed the road, but they have not officially dedicated the right-of-way to the city. That is a process that is ongoing and will take some study, some legal work that has to happen. And so at this point, the public right-of-way as we know it does not exist. And so you may want to ask some questions about access for that property that only is proposing access to Stagecoach. The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have of him. And again, this is not a public hearing.
Okay. Is there anything that the applicant would like to add?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Rick Lindsay here on behalf of the applicants. The actual company name is Hyde Park Properties 2 LLC, but I've got Mike and Michael Hyde here in the audience with me to answer any technical questions. Robin always does a good job of presenting this. We are requesting the 52 acres to be brought into Peachtree City. This is just a step one. As Robin said, the ER properties would be connected to the, or have access through Stagecoach. The other lots would have access through Spear. There would be the multi-use path that would connect the two components, if you will, of this requested annexation area. We have also reached out to Southern Conservation Trust, and they've reached back to us. There are some wetlands on this property, and of course we have the Camp Creek little tributary that goes through the property. We're working with them about doing some conservation and maybe some other uses of the property. If the council's familiar, Booth Middle School has a Project Adventure type of program where they have their students get to know nature a little bit better and whatever else. We'd like to work with them, again, with the wetland areas and the creek that is in this proposed area to be annexed in. It has been before the council before. A few years ago, of course, the school wasn't built then, and Robin understands the 2014 study, but of course that was 10 years ago and obviously before Booth was put in place. So again, what we're asking for is approval of this step one so that we can engage in conversations with the staff, with the school, further conversations with Southern Conservation Trust, and bring to the Planning Commission and bring to the council a complete designed and well thought out annexation plan for you guys to vote on.
Thank you. Before you go, how many acres Southern Conservation Trust, how many acres you think we're talking about preservation?
Mike, do you know? About 12 acres
Oh, that's,
of the 52. You can see on the drawing here the kind of hatch park that goes horizontally. That's floodplain or area that would need to be considered. And then again, you've got Camp Creek that goes through it that, again, we can work to protect that area, make it something special for the middle school that's right there and for Southern Conservation Trust. And we've submitted a letter that's in the packet from Southern Conservation Trust. They're excited about working with us, again, if we can go forward.
thank you. And can someone speak to us about public safety concerns, access to these areas?
So this is not what's called a automatic aid area. Our automatic aid ends at Camp Creek. However, we do have a mutual aid agreement with the county. And as I have been told, both by fire and police, that certainly more often than not, when there are issues in this area, the county calls upon the city currently to respond to them.
We're already doing it.
More often than not.
Okay. Questions, council?
Excuse me, I have a question. Rick, you say that Southern Conservation Trust, at least I'm putting words in your mouth, but seems to be excited or at least very willing to work with you. In their letter, it says clearly these properties have significant conservation and public use values for Fayette County as well as Peachtree City. Further, Southern Conservation Trust aligns with protecting green space in the Flint River watershed and providing opportunities for outdoor recreation and nature. We understand you are in the initial phases of the planning with the project with the city of Peachtree City. We plan to work with you as the project moves forward and assist in formally protecting the land or supporting a recreational use that is mindful of the property's natural resources. So they certainly want to make sure that you're not going to violate any of the natural resources, and they want to preserve that as more of a recreational area.
Well, and I think we need to be careful with the recreation. They're not going to put a park in there, obviously, could be, and again, lots of things could happen, which is why we'd like to get past step one so we can have those conversations, meaningful conversations. Would there be, like the nature areas that we have in a couple other areas of Peachtree City? Again, my client is eager to engage in additional conversations with Southern Conservation Trust.
I understand, but I just want to make it clear the Southern Conservation District isn't driving a lot of this. They're willing to work with you and see where it goes.
Correct.
When it comes to the comprehensive plan goals, it clearly states we've got what it looks like a significant number of housing that's up there in that purple area. And yet the comprehensive plan goals at least utilize step-down residential density, which we all know, but it says encourage housing options that accommodate aging in place, working with home and multi-generational families, basically what you read to us or talked to us. That doesn't look like a lot of places where people are going to age in place. They look like larger family homes, or at least it does to me with those lots. And encourage alternate modes such as walking, biking, and low-speed tarts for a comprehensive system of multi-use paths and facilities connecting all the villages and residential areas. To me, that looks like it's kind of far out for people to be walking and taking multi-cart paths, although you're going to put some in. I think we're stretching the goals a little bit when we say that this is going to be low density. Basically, we're going to be multi-generational families. When I first saw this and talked about it with you, I thought it was going to be more multi-use, multi-family kind of places, and this looks like more larger homes to me.
Well, that's what you want, right? I mean, our comprehensive plan calls for low-density land use on the outskirts and on the eastern area of town. I mean, we wouldn't support townhomes in this area for that reason.
Right.
So to me, 3-acre lots, or 1.8 acre lots, 3-acre lots, 2 of them, is that correct? 3-acre lots?
Yes, ma'am.
2 of them in the green, and then 1.8 acre lots, 21 of them accessed by Spear Road. I mean, that's preferred. I mean, I think that's a plus. They're not coming in and asking for townhomes.
I know they're not. I just thought they were doing something different. And then the last thing I had under housing, under your, I guess this is your submittal, Rick, on page 92, on the east side of Camp Creek, the Kensington Gardens development will include 21 large upscale homes equivalent to Hyde Park. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct. Homes that are being close to $1 million.
Okay.
What does access look like to how will you get there on Stagecoach Road?
Well, you just go past where the the middle school road ends. It'll just keep going on down on Stagecoach. But you could also,
On dirt?
no, it'll be paved. The developer will obviously have to pave that and then dedicate it to.
How far?
Well, I'm trying to look at the drawing there, to where you see the kind of olive green area, and you see the road that's kind of going up and down by the city boundary right now. Thank you, Robin.
Are you saying that the developer will pave Stagecoach Road on over to the cul-de-sac access?
Right, but we have to access on paved asphalt, right?
That's why I'm asking.
Yes.
So that was a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So council, I mean, why wouldn't we approve step one? The risk is what? The risk is staff time. We don't want to have to go through all the gyrations of a step two, all the research, everything, and then come up later and find out that 4 of you want nothing to do with this project. So we kind of have to, if you decide you want to move forward, it's because you would consider the project if everything, you know, if all the stars align, if all the submittals can be pulled together. Justin or Robin, is there anything you want to add to the risk of passing a step one?
There is no obligation from you to approve a step two if you approve a step one. I don't know if that helps the discussion or not.
Understood. I don't want to put staff time, I mean, we're pretty short on staff time these days, and we don't want to waste staff time if there's no intent ever to consider the project. If we would consider the material facts in the future when they come in, well then, I would be for approving a step one.
Can you explain, can we have a further explanation on the fire and police support to this area? I know that you said that we typically, by and large, respond. Well, that's fine, but there's an impact every time we respond. So if we're going to annex them in, do we have the resources to support this?
It's negligible. I would say it's negligible. We discussed this briefly. It's hard to say how much call volume we would have over there because it ends at the school now. We go right to Spear Road without looking at it maybe once or twice a year, and that's usually to support the county in some way because the way it's broken up in that area, like some houses belong to us already, some houses belong to the county. So we would have to like pick down to the address to kind of tell you that. That's why we were saying it's almost, sometimes they're dispatching us to a Fayette County house, and sometimes it's a Peachtree City house because it's on the same road and they're intermixed already. So for us, we're already going there, adding 20 more houses to that.
Doesn't make a difference.
Not for us, I would say. I'll let Matt speak to.
So just in terms of what's currently there and what's currently happening, just keep in mind only the white spots are actually currently, residences. There's not very many there. So we don't have a large baseline of data. We don't do automatic aid agreements like the fire department does, so they don't automatically dispatch us to anything outside the city. But in areas like that, and this is not unique to that area, this is pretty much anywhere, but that's a good example where the sheriff's office there's a good chance they don't have anybody particularly close to that. They may have a 10 or 15 minute response time, and if it's a fraud report, that's fine. But if it's something important, there's a very good chance their on-duty supervisor is going to say, hey, notify Peachtree City. I got 3 cars there in 5 minutes, and we'll respond to provide immediate intervention. Sheriff's office will show up, and then we're going to leave. So even with that, that's not a common thing, but it's not uncommon for that to happen all around of our city limits, and the sheriff's office reciprocates similarly. So, but in adding to that does not, to me, create any immediate concerns. I don't really have any reluctance regarding the number of lots or anything. I think it's, we're talking a total of maybe 30 homes or something.
You don't need to keep justifying it. Thank you. You've answered my question.
You have comments, Glenn, or?
Yeah, go ahead if you're ready.
Yeah, so I can tell you what I like and what I don't like. I'm familiar with Michael Hyde. They do a quality product. We need new houses. Our average house is 33 years old. There certainly will be a demand. I don't like having to go outside of the city, or the fact that, like for Stagecoach, that we don't even own it at this time. Now, I'd hate to approve this part of it, knowing that if you can't make it where it's, where a Peachtree City Road gets to it, then I would say no. I wouldn't want to waste their time or staff's time. but that would be a hurdle that maybe they could figure out how to cross. I would be in favor of it at that point, so.
So the road is a concern, the stagecoach road.
Stagecoach, well, yeah, Stagecoach and Spear. I mean, we looked at this, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, Mike? Is
It's
that
a little
what it was?
longer than that, but yes,
And-
it was turned down basically because of going outside the city to get back into the city.
Right. So,
Doesn't this take care of that?
No,
Not
Uh,
exactly. We wouldn't,
that's,
so we,
that area right there that is county or is that city now?
that's county.
It's county, okay. Now, what I would like, there was a mention in the packet about a covenant restriction on the land itself, about access to Spear Road or Stagecoach. Would you explain that, Rick?
The most southern, if I got the directions right, portion of the property that actually touches Spear Road, my clients acquired from Mr. Davis, of Smith and Davis. He did not want to have access from the school that would go all the way down to Spear so that school buses would go through off of a Spear. It doesn't mean, I've looked at the language that's in the deed, you could cut it off in a cul-de-sac and not let it touch Spear and come the other way. But again, that's something we need to talk to the staff about.
Yeah.
If the concern, Phil, is to make sure that we say on city roads or whatever, that's something we can look at, but we need to be able to talk to staff and get them engaged and really go through this to see what are the options there. And I hear you loud and clear.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
You got anything else, Rick?
I only have one issue. I'm going to try this pointer and see if it works all the way over there.
They
Nope,
do. They
it
go a long
doesn't.
ways.
Nope, it doesn't work at all.
Want to try mine?
Here,
Yeah, does that one work? Thank you.
Here's
Did
mine.
you know
I got a
green
dead one.
lasers, did you know green lasers scare away geese? If you point that
Hey.
green laser at a goose a half a mile away, it'll fly away.
I have a green laser at home and I use it on the turkey vultures.
Should we possibly give them to code enforcement as they go by Battery Way?
Yeah. My issue on this is the tie-in of Stagecoach over to this cul-de-sac. Now, you're going to be putting in paths in there, but you're not going to be connecting it for vehicles. And I think, Rick, you explained that there's some type of covenant that you can't do that. Did I understand that correctly?
Clint, it's for, the covenant is on the southern part, there you go, that part.
Down here?
Yeah, so it doesn't say that you can't connect Spear with Stagecoach. It talks about benefiting the adjoining property, which really meant the buses coming.
Yeah, keeping the buses off here, but
Right, so again, we need to be able to talk to staff and figure out if we've got to figure out how to get across the creek or whatever else, have those discussions. But the promise, Mr. Davis, was that we would not build a road that could take the buses from Boo all the way to Spear.
I certainly understand that and respect that. Because, you know, if you're living in these houses here, you don't want to have something coming down there, you know, every day of school, both in and out. The question I had, and I had this earlier, was, is there any reason why a road can't be brought down to Spear here so that you have that safety aspect that's in the city where fire and police, God forbid they're needed up there at the school, can come in from Spear Road in addition to coming in from Carriage and from Stagecoach?
Right, the access where the multi-use path, I always want to say golf cart path because I'm so old. But the path will be designed so that, again, you wouldn't have daily traffic, but if a police car or a fire truck needed to get in there, or you had, maybe the bridge got washed out, like we've had in Smoke Rise many, many years ago, where people can actually get in and out, but it's not designed, and it would not be somewhere where people would drive on a daily basis. It'd only be an emergency. So yes, there would be an emergency access point, but not a daily traffic point.
Well, that was just another way that I would like to make sure we, you know, make sure we take care of the students that are at the Booth Middle School with both fire and police. God forbid we need them to go rushing in there. It's just another access way for them to get in. And what I'm hearing is, yeah, they can go down the cart pass. Well,
They wouldn't go to Fayetteville to come
I
back
know
to
that, I know
middle
that,
school.
but unless there's some reason, something as Rick said, that maybe a washout or something blocked or whatever, to give them that additional access for police and fire into a school is critical. All of us have had children where, you know, you never know when they need to be taken care of by the police and fire.
And that's
So-
what Carriage Lane does.
Right, well, I'm just saying, assuming that it's not blocked. In this case, though, adding in an access down to Spear Road is something that I would, that would help me vote for this. But at this point, I see too much density here, and I'm not in favor of that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so what you're talking about, Clint, so right now, they go this way to the school too, is that correct?
That's down.
And they go here,
Carriage
now that
ends.
that's paved, correct? Okay,
And it goes
and
down.
then, so what Mr. Lindsay was saying was he'd like to address these concerns, but unless he gets an opportunity through the step one of this initial, what we're talking about here, he's not allowed to do that. Now, you can still, when it comes up again, you can still deny it, because if he hasn't, I'll say met, the criteria that you're looking for. But he can't even try to do that unless we give him an opportunity to approve this step one.
Right,
And
but-
so if they're willing to spend their money and time, and I realize it's staff time also.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason not to approve.
Well, that's only just
Can
one of
I-
the two that I had as concern, was the access, but also too, the density issue. Right now, they're, what, 1.2 acre lots on the
Again,
purple there?
1.8 is.
1.8, excuse me. And, you know, I don't know why we have to have that type of density there. Is there any reason why we can't go to larger lots and bring down the number of houses that go in there?
And that's something he can work with through staff and council and the planning commission. He can't even talk about it until unless we approve this step one.
Well, I understand that, but also Rick is standing by that microphone right now, and he can probably address that issue of density in step down.
This isn't a public hearing, right? We're
Okay.
not asking but I do have one other question.
Okay.
So Robin, when you were talking about, or Rick was talking about the covenants problem down there with the individual that doesn't want things going across his property, and you said you need to work with staff to try to get that,
It's not on his property, Frank. It was his, but before he sold it to my client, that was just one of the conditions. So it's in the deed.
Is that
okay?
this? Is that
That's that. So is there a way that you guys can work that out? So if it's denied tonight and then you work it out, you can bring it back?
It's already worked out.
No, he said it wasn't.
Well, Frank, I'm not understanding your question.
The connection.
Connection to Spear?
In the deed, there's something that you need to work out.
No, we have, the deed is already done and it's been filed and whatever. What I'm saying is that we will not connect the road that comes off of Spear with the other road that comes off of Stagecoach.
Right.
There'll be a cart path there. There already, I think there is some kind of path that goes over that way. It'll be wide enough, Clint, for emergency vehicles to get across, but it's not going to be wide enough paved where cars can go across it. I mean, a lot of, I don't know if in Peachtree City, if you have subdivisions that have like these emergency access points, but I know they do in Coweta County, and I know they do out in Fayette County, where you'll have maybe one main entrance that comes in, but then somewhere else in the development, there's kind of like a dirt area that's not, it may not even be like looking like a road, but it's an area where fire trucks can get across, police cars can get across. If there's something that happens, a tree falls across the main entrance where people could get out if they had to, you know, if there's an emergency. That'd be the similar type of thing here, where if you had to get out that way, you could.
I was just wondering, but twice you said you need to work with staff to figure out something in that area. It wasn't about the width of the path or anything
Well,
else.
no, one of the questions I know that Phil was asking was, you know, could we possibly connect all of this to, I guess, the Stagecoach or whatever? And I said, well, I can't even engage with those conversations with staff and with my client to look at it, you know, is this something that can be done or not, to bring it back to you to say, okay, here's a little bit different design than what we showed you at step one after we've had these discussions. What's in the deed is in the deed.
So you can't even do that until you get a step one approval.
So you're saying,
Mr. Lindsay has a history of being things into us.
well, so if a redesign, could a redesign so that the main connection is only from Stagecoach over Camp Creek and then here, and then basically flipping the cul-de-sac so it ends down here? Is that what I'm understanding?
Right, I'm just saying that's maybe a possibility. I don't know, I have to talk to my
Right,
client or
right.
whatever, but again, that's something I'm hearing from Phil, and I'm saying, okay, if that's something that the council wants us to look at, we need to be able to talk to staff, we need to be able to have those conversations. I need to talk to my clients and say, look, you know, if this is the way to get it to work, does that make sense?
And they might end up going, well, that's not financially feasible, but, they can't have those conversations unless we approve step
And that's what I asked. We can't even
Yeah.
have them until we have step one.
Well, I will caution too, Frank, like, you know, this is not a staff proposal.
I
So
understand.
even them going back and looking at other options, that's not, like, staff, they can ask staff questions.
Justin, I understand
Okay,
that.
we're not gonna design it.
I'm just telling you that Mr. Lindsay has a tendency to talk about things to the staff before. So I just was asking, he can't even talk to them about
I
that.
think he's being very cautious to not.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you.
I think, the Kensington Gardens, the 21, large upscale homes equivalent to the existing Hyde Park subdivision. I think it's a beautiful subdivision, located in the right place on the east side of town. The fact that there's a potential for 12 acres conserved for the benefit of the students at the middle school, very impressive, and I'm very green, I like the conservation. And at the end of the day, if we got to a point someday where all this was approved and this was built, could I be proud of that? Yeah, I would be very proud of that. I would like to be able to say, yeah, okay, I was on council when we approved that. Any other comments?
I think we've discussed this enough.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring it to a
All right.
motion.
Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve agenda item 52310, step one, annexation request for 400 Stagecoach Road, about 52 acres.
I'd second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Oh,
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. Public hearings. A, 52311, variance request for fence requirements at 200 Sierra Drive, Certainty.
Yes, and Mayor, I will start with the protocol. This is a zoning matter. When the public hearing is open, members of council will become hearers. No action on their part is in order until the mayor declares the hearing complete. First, city staff will present the request and provide an assessment of compliance with city code. The mayor will then allow up to 10 minutes for speakers on each side of the issue to present evidence. No individual member of the public will be given more than 5 minutes to speak. Time limits may only be extended by a majority vote of council and will be divided equally between those supporting and those opposing the issue. 2, the mayor will recognize the applicant and those supporting the issue to present evidence. Remarks will be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Next, the mayor will then recognize those opposing the issue to present evidence for up to 10 minutes. Prior to closing the public hearing, city staff and the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions of either or both sides of the issue. When the mayor and council are assured that the presentation of evidence is complete, the public hearing shall be ended, and council may then debate the issue and render a decision. All speakers from the public are asked to follow these rules. 1, please wait to be recognized by the mayor. 2, come to the microphone and state your name and neighborhood prior to making remarks. 3, keep individual remarks under 5 minutes and do not repeat comments. And 4, address all comments to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. The property, 200 Sierra Lane, is located in our industrial park. It's on the south side of the city. For reference, this is 74 South, the clearly there's the airport, and the property is highlighted. It is the Certainty manufacturing facility. And they have erected a security fence around the perimeter of their laydown yard. This is an older site. It was developed back in the 70s. They are currently in the process of doing a major upgrade to the property. They're expanding the building and more than, I think, doubling their output. And so this laydown yard is where they put that material so that when the trucks come in off of 74, they circle around, they load up, and then they leave. And so they erected this fence, unfortunately without a permit, and when it did come in for a permit review, staff denied it. They approached us and asked us how could they move forward keeping this fence, and therefore that is what the request is to do. The reason it was denied is because our ordinance requires that fences, even industrial fences that are chain link in the front yard, which is anything between a building and the road, so this is a big front yard, has to be vinyl coated, and the maximum height is 6 feet. So you can see from the pictures, this is not vinyl coated, and it exceeds the 6 feet because they've added some, what I call barbed wire, some security wire at the top of the fence. So just to give you a little orientation of what you're looking at here, this is 74. This is Sierra Drive. There is the building, and so the airport is behind them. And the blue line shows, and the green line shows the metal fence, and then there's a gate across there. And I did want to note that there is an existing 60-foot undisturbed buffer between the existing fence and the right-of-way. And the applicant is here to plead his case.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me come up. My name is Micah Pace. I represent Certainty. I'm the chief engineer for the current project, or what we call Project Relay. This is our plant, just like Robin was showing. The middle is the pointer. I'm sorry. Okay. The middle is our plant as it is currently. You know, we added this additional 8 acres of ground coverage so we can have our finished product storage. The reason for all of this is because of our expansion. And this is what our expansion is. It's what we call Project Relay. We've been in the community since 1974. You know, the first shingles off the line was in 1976 under a different name, but well, can you go back? Oh, sorry.
Going back.
One button goes forward.
Yeah, the big button goes forward.
Okay, no way to go back, sorry. I apologize.
The button underneath goes back.
Okay.
Let's find what you need.
There we go. So we call this Project Relay because we're handing off from the old generation to the new. Basically, every single thing in our facility is being touched, from our current laydown yard that we have all the way through all of our raw materials, even our production line. We'll be decommissioning our current production line and adding a new production line, which will 2.5 times the volume of what our plant currently can produce. So that's why we call it Project Relay, because we want to be in this community for a very, very long time. And one problem that we have is our site is very small. We have 23 acres, and so this upper area, which is up here, was all woods prior to just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And we needed to create storage for us to hold 300,000 squares of roofing shingles. Well, that's quite a bit of product for us, but it's equivalent to about a month's worth of production for us at the site. So we will load the product and ship it out from right here. The fence that we've added, because we no longer have that larger buffer, is the same type of fencing that we have all around our property. It's the same type of fencing just like right down the road from us that the FAA uses, which is the 6-foot tall fence with the barbed wire that's at an angle at the very top. up in this area, we will be securing, that product is equivalent to $33 million worth of our inventory, which is substantial. So we need to keep it secure. So that's what we're asking for, is to keep the current fence that we've put up. And our contractors, when we developed this site, did all the concrete work and, you know, all the access roads and the entrance gates. We put it in with the understanding from our previous fencing that we would extend the fencing to enclose the property. That was something that I didn't realize. You know, they were the ones that did the permitting. I didn't realize that we needed that permit, and it was a miss on my part. But we added the fence, and that was caught just recently. So, looking around our property, it's the same similar fence that we have around all of our other property. It's 6 foot tall with barbed wire. The newest fence, which is in the middle, that is a very nice reinforced gate. It looks a lot better than the old previous fences, like what's at our shipping entrance, which is down here at the bottom. We'd like to eventually move all of the other fences over to something very similar. They're less maintenance, and they're more aesthetically pleasing. So all of our current fencing in the property is regular chain link fence, you know, the galvanized steel. Like I said, just exactly like right down the road from us at the FAA and across the street at Cylon on the Sierra Drive side. So that is what I have. Let's go to the next slide. So we'd like to keep an open line of sight coming in off of 74 into our entrance. That'll be for truck traffic, and the exit for our raw materials will be at the exit side, will be the next exit down. There will be a one-way traffic pattern once everything's developed. It's all open at the moment. We don't have everything in place yet. So we'd really like to keep, you know, the fence that we have, and we also like to, you know, at your mercy, to what can we do to keep our property, you know, secure. It's really important for us to keep our $33 million worth of inventory secure, especially with the barbed wire fencing. I'd hate for someone to jump over the fence and steal some of our product. It's true that it could happen. A lot of the other properties in the area, they have backyards. Well, we don't have that luxury because our backyard is the airport. So our backyard is, in essence, closer to 74. So we don't have a way of securing something in the back of our property. It's up to the front of our property. As you can see, we do have the tree buffer that Robin was speaking of. The only real area is if you're coming north on Highway 74, you can see our opening right there by our fence and our sign. But that was what we'd like to do, if you'll accept it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Micah. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Can I get a show of hands of those who wish to speak in favor of the variance? All right, you have the microphone, 5 minutes.
I won't need 5 minutes on this, but I'm Suzanne Brown. I live in Peachtree City. We need to support our industries. They made a mistake, not a good one. But they're doubling the size of their facility. They're going to hire more people. This is all where we need to be going as a municipality. So I don't think that we should do anything more than just smack their hand and let them go on with their business and continue to grow within Peachtree City. As they grow, we grow. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor? Does anyone wish to, in favor? Yes.
Yep.
This isn't actually why I came tonight, but I thought this was important. So I believe the taxes that we receive off the $33 million worth of product is much more than we get off the houses on the tiny lot that's being annexed. And I'm in favor of them keeping the fence and with a request for excusal or whatever because they made a mistake, but, I have thieves in Healing for Heroes, which surprises me because they're fellow veterans. So I guarantee somebody's gonna try to steal the stuff out of their yard. So I'm in favor of them keeping the money that they've already spent on that fence and keeping that fence up despite the mistake.
Would you please state your name?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Piper Hill?
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Council?
Yes, ma'am. The one thing I would ask you to do at your entrance is a bit of shrubbery to eliminate the vision that you have there from the street. And that when you do that, keep it below cab height on a semi, because, you know, that's really the only thing you need to line of sight, and I agree with you. And as far as the fence is concerned, I agree with Ms. Brown, because you're the other, just to your west is a chain link metal fence, just like what you're doing with barbed wire on it that houses the airport.
Would you please, Robin, would you please put up I think the last slide, the one that had his fence? It shows a significant buffer. You said it was a 60-foot buffer? No, not, well, then there you go. So that whole buffer is right there now, right?
Yes, sir, this is a current picture.
Right, so when you look at the drawing, that blue line that's 700 and whatever feet is right alongside that other,
Yep.
that's
that-
right in there, right?
Right in there.
So they've got quite a bit of buffer now.
Yes.
I mean, that would be my only concern, was that it was visible from 74. And obviously, it's probably not going to be too visible from 74. You know, if you want, besides getting, I think you're going to be hit with a double permit fee for not realizing that you're supposed to have a permit. But you might, when Planning Commission gets a hold of this, they may ask you to put in some underbrush or something to keep it, you know, at the car length with somebody driving by. But I find it kind of funny that you didn't know you needed a permit, but nevertheless, I agree with the fact that you're here. It's a great place. I go by there quite a bit, and I think it's something we ought to support you with. So I agree with that, Mike.
Anybody else?
Go ahead, Clint, I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, thank you for being business here in Peachtree City, and we do appreciate you being here. And I like the idea that you came up and said, I think we made a mistake. I like that. Shows a little bit of character about your company. Second thing is, I agree with my cohorts here that maybe a little bit of landscaping around the entrance, and potentially let the Planning Commission take a look-see about any other kind of visibility issues. Other than that, I really don't have any issues of just letting it go.
Yeah, same thing. I like to see the chain, I don't like to see chain link fences, but if we can dress it up, as seen from 74, that's an aerial view right there. So I don't know if there's evergreens or something that, you know, I'm talking about from the road, right? Nobody's gonna be up this high looking down at it, Robin. I mean, they might be, but no, they're in trouble. So if we could do something so that it's hidden from 74, you okay with that?
Yeah, and you're talking about from where the tree line is down to the fence and then maybe across that island? Is that what you're talking, down in that area? Is that what you're thinking?
If the Planning Commission do that.
In between
Yeah, let's just
some
let
of
the
the
planning
trees.
commission, but like right in here, can you see through those? No. Not at all?
No?
Not much.
Not much?
Okay.
So yeah, just a little bit right there then.
Yeah, I'd let the Planning Commission take a good look, and you know, there may be a few odds and ends that need to be done there, but in essence, I think it'll look good when it's all done.
Yeah. So, yeah, you ready to make a motion? You can include this condition, Phil?
Sure.
You gonna do it, Frank?
We have one condition in our council packet on page 104. Should the city council decide to approve the variance request, staff recommends approval
Additional evergreen landscaping.
with this condition, additional evergreen landscaping. Are you with me?
Yep.
All right, who wants to make a motion?
I'll do it. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve agenda item 05-2311, variance request for fence requirements at 200 Sierra Drive, certainty with the recommendation from city staff that additional evergreen landscaping shall be added between the fence and the public rights of way.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very
Nice to
much.
see you, Micah.
I think that was the intent.
Public hearing, 52312, capital improvement element, annual update and transmittal to state for review.
Yes, Mayor, and this is a non-zoning matter, so there are different protocols. When the public hearing is open, members of council will become hearers. No action on their part is in order until the mayor declares the hearing complete. First, city staff will present the item. The mayor will then allow a total of 10 minutes for members of the public to comment. No individual member of the public will be given more than 5 minutes to speak. Time limits may only be extended by a majority vote of council. Prior to closing the public hearing, city staff and the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions. When the mayor is assured that the input is complete, the public hearing shall be ended, and council may then debate the issue and render a decision. All speakers from the public are asked to follow these rules. 1, please wait to be recognized by the mayor. 2, come to the microphone and state your name and neighborhood prior to making remarks. 3, keep individual remarks under 5 minutes, and please do not repeat others' comments. And 4, address all comments to the mayor. Thank you.
The capital, because we collect impact fees, there are additional requirements that the state has of us in reporting that. And we are required, therefore, to annually update our capital improvement element and send this financial report to the state for review, and then it has to come back and be adopted by this board. This review or this submission has to include that 5-year capital improvement plan. Wanted to note that this is what is already adopted in your FY 2023 budget, so there's no changes there. And then the impact fee financial report. We take the audited numbers from the FY 22 budget and we report exactly how we spent that impact fee money on which projects and how much it was, making sure that it meets those requirements. We are required to have a public hearing before we do that, which is what we're doing tonight. In that report is included this summary table, which summarizes all the funds that were there in these earmarked accounts as of September 30th, 2021, all the impact fees that were collected from development over the year, and then any expenditures that we spent over that year. So for example, we collect fees for parks and recreation. We had 2.8+ million in September 2021. We collected 1.2, almost 1.3. We spent 355,000, and therefore we have in the account right now, or as of September 30th, 2022, 3.8 million. And so it lists for all of the different fees that we collect, police and fire. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, well, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I hereby close the public hearing. Council?
No comment.
Questions, comments?
No comment.
All right. Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the public hearing 52312, the capital improvement element annual update and transmittal to the state for review as specified.
I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Council staff topics, police updates. Assistant Chief Matt Myers.
Madam Mayor, Council, as always, I appreciate you having me out tonight to speak with you. I'll go over a few highlights that I think are perhaps relevant. Nothing in particular led to this particular item on the agenda other than some recent discussions between staff, the city manager, and presumably some of you as well. So I'm just going to touch on a few things that I think are interesting topics on which we could provide some updates, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. First, I want to start by bragging on the high-quality work that our staff puts into maintaining our agency's compliance with continually evolving industry best practices. We're in our 30th year now of being a CALEA accredited agency. CALEA is the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, which is the gold standard of accreditation for law enforcement. Just this last week or 2 weeks ago, we finished our annual file review for or annual file inspection, basically. And then next week we have our annual on-site where an accreditor will come out and do an on-site portion of the inspection. We're in our 10th year of accreditation with excellence under what's called a gold standard assessment, which is a different style of assessment than what has been traditionally done over the longer history and is only done for a portion of applicants. This is a type of assessment that focuses not as much on a remote file view or reading policies. There is some component of that, but there is a much larger component of actually coming on site, doing inspections, speaking with members of the staff, and ensuring that we're not an agency who just has some good policies on the books. People actually understand what they're supposed to be doing, people are actually executing on that, and we have a good, clear alignment from top to bottom of the organization on how we're going to carry out best practices and be a solid agency following a series of best practice standards. Out of about 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the country, there are 236 that hold accreditation with excellence. We also have recently achieved the Gold Meritorious Award from the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police State Certification Program, which is awarded for having 20+ years of consecutive state certification. I also want to mention briefly some community projects that we've done this year, because this is a very central role that our organization takes, and this is a very fundamental part of our policing philosophy is to be community oriented in our programs. And I believe that shows through just a list of some recent events. So far in 2023, we already have 236 recorded community events, including things like Coffee with a Cop, self-defense programs, civilian active shooter response courses, scout tours, fraud prevention courses for seniors, and some larger things as well, such as a community emergency response team course that we've already completed, and we have a Citizens Police Academy currently in progress. Later this summer, we're going to be holding 2 junior police academies as well, which is always one of our most popular programs. Moving on to crime statistics, looking at Part 1 crimes over the last few years, and this is looking at January through April for 2019 through 2023. I think the graph pretty much speaks for itself, but what Part 1 crimes are in general don't speak for themselves. So from the chart, I just would ask you to note that it does seem in 2019 we had a little bit of a downturn in 2020, which of course, as everybody knows, was when the pandemic began. It dipped a little further in 2021, and we've been trending back up. What's important to note whenever there's a discussion about Part 1 crime, though, is there's a lot more to Part 1 crime than what people think. You hear Part 1 crimes and tend to think of things like rape, robbery, and murder, which are in fact Part 1 crimes, but in Peachtree City, which is actually true to some extent in most cities, the vast majority of Part 1 crimes are larceny. And larceny for us in Peachtree City over the last 5 years has averaged about 87% of Part 1 crimes. And I know nobody knows what larceny is, because I really didn't know for a long time either. I think I've been a cop for like 5 years before I figured out what it was, because nobody uses that term. But I'll show a pie chart that shows how our Part 1 crimes broke out in 2022. And that big blue piece there, that's larceny. So 83% of our Part 1 crimes in 2022 were larceny. That includes theft, shoplifting, and entering auto. And so as you can see, those are the things that make up a significant portion of the fluctuation in Part 1 crimes. And for that reason, the Part 1 crimes in the community can fluctuate significantly based upon things that can be somewhat whimsical, such as the policies or practices of a major retailer in increasing or decreasing the reporting of shoplifting. That can have a significant impact on the rate of Part 1 crimes. And in a place like Peachtree City, where we have large retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, and Target, that is very prone to cause significant changes in our Part 1 crimes. And the increase so far in 2023 that we've seen, I can tell you, is in large and influx or a change in the reporting of shoplifting makes up most of that. Over the last several years, the other Part 1 crimes, the major, what you might call more serious ones, your burglary, homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, things have maintained relatively steady. There are, as always, of course, fluctuations. Last year our burglaries were up a little bit. This year's aggravated assaults are up a little bit. but they've been relatively consistent on that subgroup. Part 2 crimes, and again, I know most people don't know what Part 2 crimes are, so I will show a chart here in a minute that explains that. Part 2 crimes have trended a little bit differently though. And on this one, I'm going to show the 2019 through 2022 are full year statistics, and on 2023 on this slide and the remainder, the blue line, the blue bar is year to date, and the dotted line shows the projected end of year 2023 numbers. So you'll see that over the last few years, we've had a change in our Part 2 crimes that's been trending up. So far in 2023, it looks like that may be going back down a little bit, but we'll see if that bears out. Looking at what makes up Part 2 crimes, you can see this as things like DUI, traffic offenses, drug crimes, public order crimes, various misdemeanors, assaults, frauds, forgeries, criminal damage, miscellaneous other crimes of various sorts. So this is what, if you look at this and see a good chunk of what makes up our Part 2 crimes, and again, this graph is from 2022, you'll see that things like DUI, traffic offenses, and drugs make up a significant portion of our Part 2 crimes. And it leads into something that I'm going to show a couple more charts on that I think is maybe not necessarily what everybody immediately thinks is interesting, but I think is very central to why we've seen a change in Part 2 crimes and some other downstream effects on other interactions we have during our investigations. So I want to start by showing a change in felony drug cases over the last several years. So you'll see from back before the pandemic, so 2019, we started trending up through 2020. Massive increase again in 2021, and by the end of 2022, we'd seen about 167% increase in felony drug cases from 2019 before COVID. Is there any association? I always get asked that. I don't know. I can tell you that in that time frame, we started seeing significant changes, and everybody has different opinions about what led up to that. But certainly a number of things occurred in society, and we do see some changes that coincide with it, whatever the case may be. So far in 2023, it looks like we're trending down a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that rebound back up a little bit in the next couple of months, because some of that may be because of some staffing challenges over the last few months where we're filling, and we'll be filling back out, I hope. Our DUI cases is another very interesting metric of what's going on in the community, not just from a behavioral standpoint, but from a risk perspective. One of the most critical things that I think we provide to a community, that we try to provide to our community, is a sense of traffic safety, because a lot of crimes are fairly easy to avoid, but being randomly smashed by a drunk driver while you're running around town minding your business is a really serious threat that can affect all of us at any moment, and you don't know it. You never see it coming, and that's a much higher incidence per person risk than most violent crimes. This is a very serious area of law enforcement that we address aggressively, but we're seeing some really concerning increases. So again, following a similar trend from 2019 up through 2022, we saw a 210% increase. 2023 is trending down a little bit, but still not anywhere near where we were a few years ago. Now, looking at subsets of that, I think are illuminating as to, not necessarily the cause, but some very, maybe perhaps concerning trends. So right here I'm showing daytime DUI cases. And we see that actually from 2019 to 2021 increased by an even larger percentage. But just over that same 4-year period, we saw a 92, almost 100% increase in driving under the influence cases. As a matter of fact, I heard one just a little while ago at the city council meeting. I think came out of a crash. Something that we continue to struggle with. Our DUI drug cases, again, following a similar pattern. We see from 19, some increase in 20, big increase in 2021, fairly steady in 2022, and 23 trending back down a little bit. And that's been, if you look at all of those slides I just showed, it was a very, very similar pattern of 21 and 22 being very high years. In many cases, on many metrics, our highest years ever on all of these statistics. The next one is really not necessarily about a specific crime, so much as the way that an element of society is responding to us as law enforcement when we are called to investigate crimes. And despite the fact that over the last several years, we, like most law enforcement agencies, have undertaken an unprecedented amount of training on de-escalation and avoiding the use of force, we continue to be pressed to the point where it is absolutely unavoidable in many cases. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is despite our increasing efforts to avoid that and decrease it, we are having a significant increase in cases that require some response to aggression and some type of force being used by law enforcement. That also extends to pursuits, people fleeing from us, and a general, I guess, atmosphere of non-compliance. So I want to give some note on this slide. If you can ignore at first the dotted lines here and look only at the 2023 YTD year-to-date line here, that's so far this year in 2023. So looking at the blue line, that's response to aggression incidents, use of force cases. You can see that in 2023, right now, we've already had our highest year ever. Those other numbers are end-of-year statistics for the previous years. Those are not year-to-date. 2023 is year-to-date. We've already had more use of force cases this year than we've ever had in any previous year, all 12 months. Pursuits, the same thing. You can see, again, trending up through 2020, big peak in 2021 and 2022, our highest years ever. 2023, we're beating it already in May. That's very concerning. Another interesting trend that follows along with this is our officer injuries tend to follow those same exact two lines simply because they're high-risk activities. Policing is a contact sport. People are going to get hurt. We do everything we can to mitigate that, but it does happen. And we see that officer injuries follow along an almost identical path through 21 and 22. 23, fortunately, it has not been as high as some of the other things, but and we're going to do everything we can to keep that. The dotted lines are showing if the rest of 23 continues at the current rate, what our projected end-of-year numbers would be. Obviously, it hasn't come to fruition yet, but that is a projection for the remainder of the year. Now, that all sounds very interesting, and of course, I would hope the next question is, wow, what are we doing about this? Are we handling it okay? So I want to review a couple of training programs and things that we are doing to respond in the best way possible to current challenges. Number one is offering a robust, very, very comprehensive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training program to all of our officers. And if you're not familiar with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or BJJ as it sometimes is called, it is a martial art based upon grappling, and the intention is to use restraint and control tactics to minimize the amount of force required to gain control of a suspect and to reduce the amount of injury both to the suspect and officer by using grappling and soft hand type techniques. It has been very successful. Our officers who have been active in training in these courses, and even those who haven't been super active but have received some basic roll call type training, we have seen from incident reviews, officers using these techniques very successfully, and we're very excited about that. What we're doing is there is a BJJ studio here in town. All of our officers are offered a free membership. We pay for it. They can go anytime they want. And if staffing allows, we allow them to go on duty even to a class. We also have 9 of our people on staff now have completed a Gracie Survival Tactics, which is a subset of BJJ type techniques. They've completed the Gracie Survival Tactics instructor course and have become instructors for this type of martial arts, and they are doing in-house training and roll calls and having open mat days when we can maximize the amount of training. So we're trying to take good care of our officers and our citizens by providing these valuable techniques to the officers. We've also, over the last several years, tried to increase our ability to mitigate the risk from vehicle pursuits. As of 2020, I believe we had 0 people actually trained in precision intervention technique, or a PIT, as you may have heard it called. And it was actually very difficult to change. The number of available slots for training at the State Training Center would only allow us to get maybe 5 or 6 people through in a year, which is very hard to use and actually train an appreciable amount of your agency. We were able to reach an agreement with the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, where we got use of their track and their vehicles, and we have our own instructors. We started running our own courses there using their equipment, and now as of 2023, we've trained almost 90% of our agency in using intervention techniques to end pursuits as quickly as we possibly can so that we can reduce the risk to the rest of the public when that occurs. A couple other things on the horizon is we have some very helpful SPLOST projects forthcoming. The replacement and upgrade of our current UAV or drone is going to be very beneficial for increasing our search and rescue capacity through the use of infrared and other techniques. And we are currently scheduled to increase our 2 K9s to a total of 4 K9s. And The SPOS will also cover the replacement of 2 current canines who will be retiring in the next year or two. The canine program is absolutely vital to what we're doing here and our ability to interdict certain elements of the criminal enterprise that we've seen with the drug crime increasing, but also for apprehension and tracking as well. They are a very important part of our force. We have several other training priorities and programs that I'll just briefly highlight. We have and I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but most of our patrol division has been trained on the crisis intervention team, which is a training program oriented around improving response to people who are having a mental health crisis. Obviously, there is a certain skill to that that everybody's not born with, and they certainly don't teach it to you very well in the police academy. So it requires a lot of additional training to get people, officers, where they have the right mindset and the right skills in their toolbox to properly respond to that situation, and hopefully help this person get the help that they need and avoid unfortunate conflict with the criminal justice system. We have a myriad of advanced DUI training programs so that we can better intervene with that unfortunate increase we've seen in driving under the influence cases. And another part of that is we now are participating in a relatively new program in Georgia for law enforcement phlebotomists. We have 4 people on staff, officers, who are able to do blood draws for themselves or other officers, which is a massive improvement because it is very difficult to get blood draws at a medical facility these days. And it's usually after hours. It would just be the hospital. And that's really not a good use of their resources. And the fire department can help us, and they do, but it's also not necessarily the best use of their resources. So we're moving as much of that burden over to ourselves as possible to facilitate an improvement in the process. We also have several less lethal weapon platforms to try and be able to have novel and effective ways to mitigate high-risk situations with the minimal amount of force necessary. We have a very robust and industry-leading program on training on active shooter intervention, and we put our officers, every one of them goes through high-stress, high-intensity active shooter training, learning how to appropriately press threats and resolve these types of situations immediately. We have a precision driver training. It's not the same thing as PIT. It's more like crash avoidance training. We have several really excellent driving instructors that put our officers through cone courses and similar exercises, learning important precision driving and crash avoidance type techniques. We've also placed the last couple of years an increased emphasis on officer resiliency, which sounds like a very generic term, but really emphasizing best practices and for managing your mental health, seeking help, understanding that it's okay to not be okay and getting help in the right places, and how to manage your own personal health and resiliency, and how we as officers and managers can also help individuals when there are signs of an issue. The stresses of the job, the weird hours, the toll it takes on your body and your mind over a period of years can be very taxing for people, and it's something we're trying to do a very intentional job about taking care of. And we've also expanded our crisis negotiator team. You used to hear the term hostage negotiator, but it's not really just for hostages anymore. We have some very skilled crisis negotiators that have been very effective in talking people out in high-risk situations into an amicable outcome. And that's been a very, very good program. I'm going to jump back now to a slide everybody probably remembers from the April 6th council presentation when Assistant City Manager Strickland gave a presentation about where we were with a number of metrics surrounding pay and compensation. And this slide was showing some challenges police department specifically has experienced over the last several years. With that trend line at the top there showing that our applications from 2015 through 2022 had trended down by 63%. The lines at the bottom showing people hired versus people leaving was showing a fairly consistent trend up through 2021, 2022, when we started to experience what were seeming to be insurmountable challenges where the people were departing, were increasing the people hired by a rate where I was really not sure we were going to be able to rebound from it. And that's something that was being experienced to some extent across the law enforcement profession, but we were experiencing it in a degree really disproportionate with where we should be in our market placement, or well, where we would like to be placed in the market and our geographic area. So council took these trends seriously, took some feedback seriously, looked at what kind of things we should do to be changing that, made some changes to the compensation package, and not surprisingly, we saw a significant change in our application trend, Since then, a very significant change, and we are now already up to 46 applications year to date, and we only got 59 in the entire year for 2022. If that trend continues as it appears, that would put us at about 170% increase in applications versus 22, and our highest year ever, or our highest year since 2015. We're currently standing at 7 vacancies, and with 5 more officers eligible for retirement. But this week alone, we've done five interviews with certified officers, and today we interviewed 5 uncertified applicants with 1 or 2 more on board for interviews Monday of next week. So this is something we haven't experienced in quite a period of time, having this even number of people to go through, but the quality of applicants has also significantly improved over that period of time. And for the first time in quite a while, I'm feeling pretty positive about where our applicant pool is going and our ability to reach a ideal staffing level. That being said, I'll close at this point and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
That was an excellent presentation.
Yep.
Deputy Chief Meyer. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Council staff topics, UDO council liaisons.
Do you want me to start?
Justin.
So this topic was put on here by Bob. He's not here tonight, but just to kind of get the discussion started for council, it came to staff's attention from some council members that there were some concerns after the first UDO steering committee meeting about the direction of the committee, what their exact purpose is going to be throughout the process of the UDO. So Bob has brought a topic here, and he's also recommending that council possibly appoint some members of the council itself to serve on the steering committee to help guide it through the process and be at the meetings. Bob has also recommended that we have a joint meeting, with council and the steering committee and the consultant that is doing the UDO for us, GMC. I did talk to him today on this briefly, just so I make sure I don't say anything that he does not agree with. And he did confirm that he still wants to have that meeting after tonight's discussion. Like he is firm that everybody needs to be in the same room together, even if you do want to appoint some members of council to that. He wants everybody in the room together, so everybody's singing from the same sheet of music once that meeting is held, on what the purpose of this UDO is going to be, who's going to serve on it, and how we move forward with it. And that's kind of the intro for you all to discuss what you want to do.
That's fine. Do you foresee, Justin, that we would have that meeting with everyone in the room before I had thought we would task staff, Bob, with laying out the purpose of the UDO project
We can do.
and the role of the committee
So
members.
I asked Bob that question today about, should we create from a staff perspective, should we create a sheet of, what we kind of, as me and him basically, as an administration, what is our recommendation to how to move forward with the
Yes.
UDO? Like, how should the process proceed?
Yes.
We can do that. Like, Bob and I both agree we can do that, but he still thinks the meeting needs to happen, and we can bring that sheet to the meeting. We can bring kind of staff's recommendation to the meeting, but the meeting still needs to take place.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna add, we had a meeting this week to discuss it with Bob and Robin, Mike and myself, and, there were some survey questions, and then there were some, like, okay, what are the survey, what are we doing, or whatever, and then Robin, with her experience, has said that she was able to outline approximately 100, is that right? Issues that have come up in your tenure, right, as planning and zoning director, that inconsistencies in the ordinances that really, I think that's what we would want as a council to have addressed, are the inconsistencies. And so rather than I'll say the short list that the consultants thought maybe we ought to go at, maybe we ought to use Robin's experience, put something out to the public to say, hey, what is your experience with some of the ordinances, and then let the consultants go at it, come up with, we used an example of fences. I know there's different criteria on fences that have come up and changed and et cetera over time, and frankly, I don't know what's in the ordinances and what is not, but if we could get them to do all that heavy legwork of those 100 plus soliciting the public to get theirs also. And then at that point, bring it to, once they've outlined them, bring it to the committee. So the committee is looking at getting the ordinances, getting rid of the inconsistencies and the redundancies.
I think we're missing, personally, I think we're missing what the purpose of the UDO was. And that's to look at the different design standards that we have and to get rid of the duplication and/or consolidation of the ones that are either old or duplicated. Number one.
Yes.
Number one. It wasn't to go through any of the other ordinances, because if you look at the email that one of the committee members put out to everybody, I'm sure everybody saw that Rick Gernhardt put out. There was a lot of concerns about why am I here doing this and why am I here doing that. Well, one of those things was they wanted them to, at least most of those people wanted them to look at the ordinances. I don't think they're there to look at the ordinances. That's what the committee, that's what the consultant, thank you, Kim, should be doing, and bringing them to the committee, number one. Number two is they were also in one of their statements said they were going to look at how they could help accelerate the comprehensive plan. Well, that wasn't part of the responsibility to accelerate the comprehensive plan.
And so that's something that could be addressed at that meeting like we talked about. The beginning of stuff was what you were saying, was what I was talking about, where we can let that be the focus of the group. I mean, exactly, that's what I believe that's what we all thought was gonna be done, was looking at the inconsistencies and the redundancies in our ordinances, not just the design standards, but there's all kinds of.
What I was going to suggest, Madam Mayor, was that when Bob and I and Clint talked about it in our 2x2, I was not in favor, I put it out to everybody, of having all the committee members in this first meeting. I think we as a council ought to be getting together and deciding what we think should be happening, because it was clear that there was obviously problems with what the committee thought was written down in the minutes of those different meetings that were council meetings. And then I thought we ought to get ourselves together and agree on what we thought they ought to do before we brought the committee back.
Okay.
Rather than having
That's
all of
reasonable.
us sit there gabbing. And I think it would just make the committee more confused.
Well, I sympathize with the committee members, and I want to, honor what they've decided to take on with clear instructions. I think that what you're saying makes perfect sense. I probably wouldn't support anything that didn't come from staff in that regard. So
I agree.
Maybe, no, we've circled back to, let's task staff with laying out exactly in writing what the project is, how we're gonna tackle it, to your point. And council can talk about that, and then we'll get together with our committee.
And I would start, Robin, by looking at those minutes that Mr. Gernhardt and a couple other people said, this is what was said in the minutes that we were going to be able to do, and this is what was briefed by the consultant. So if we're going to start somewhere, let them start looking at what we originally approved as a council.
Yeah. Do you have
Let's
a
do
comment
it.
on that?
Well, the bottom line is that we, as a council, established a committee, and we gave them instructions that we got miscommunicated. Let's just use that for
That's
a second.
fair, that's fair.
And now we've got a process that we just talked through to have this meeting, come up exactly with what we want to do, like y'all have said, and get it done and lay it out so that everybody knows it before we bring everybody back in.
That's what I was saying, Mike.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think managing expectations is really what we should be doing, and once we get that done, then obviously we can give those instructions to the committee and let them exercise and execute.
All right, we good with that?
Yes,
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Council staff topics, anything else?
I have a staff topic that I wanted to bring up, council. I know you, and please let me get finished before you throw me out the door.
Oh, no, Frank.
That depends, Frank.
Frank.
So I know at least once, maybe twice now, we've talked about ordinance number 1206. 1206 is where we were going to allow or we discussed allowing citizens to get up and speak. Now, I missed the last one, the first one, where the individual got up and spoke about what I read in the package, because I wasn't here, was something called the blue marble, but it had to do with electricity and how you can produce electricity without heat. And we've talked about this. I know Clint's got his decisions on what he wanted. I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think at least one council member said, leave it alone, it's not broken. One council member said, hey, we've had it before, but it wasn't that, you didn't see it because the city manager wanted to, he cut things off. So I made one suggestion that I sent out to at least several of you, that I would think that we could make maybe some of this work a little easier. So that I would like to see, as part of we went ahead, excuse me, we went ahead and we raised the time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and we went from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So I was going to propose that leaving things the way Bob originally presented it to us, so 12:06 stays the same, but I would like to add that during the first 3 minutes of that person's time, that they would at least introduce the subject. So it would just be something simple. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 30 seconds or a minute, whatever that person wants to do. But he or she's going to get up and part of that initial conversation suggest what it is he or she wants to talk about when it becomes part of their time to talk. So you get up and you say something similar, and I'm only using this as an example. I want to talk about putting individuals to be able to sleep out on Drake Field. That's my topic for when it becomes time. And then I'm going to start my public comment time, talk about chickens in somebody's backyard, to quote an individual over here. So you got your 3 minutes to talk. But during that time, that gives the staff a chance to know, okay, if we approve it, because you still got to have 1 of 5 people to approve it, then we know what the topic would be, and they'll be prepared to give us the information. So my only request is that we approve what 1206 says, with the addition of a simple introduction by the individual before we vote. And we wouldn't vote that time, it would vote after the staff had a
At a
chance.
later date.
Right. So that's
Okay.
my request.
Bring it.
And we're
I like it.
not voting now,
Nope.
it's just topics.
All righty.
Any other comments?
Good. Bring it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other council staff topics? Do we have executive session?
I do have one
Yes.
quick topic. I know that the city manager and assistant city manager are putting together what I would call citizen committees. And I know we already have some established, like the Recreation Committee, and I know you and I, Mayor, have talked about that and getting that restaffed. But I'm really looking forward to this, because I've had a lot of people approach me to say they would like to get involved. And I'm really excited that I know that Justin and Bob are going to be bringing that to us in the very near future about committees for the citizens to get involved.
All right. Anything else? Executive session?
Yes, we need to discuss personnel in executive session.
Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we adjourn to executive session for personnel.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?